The Roaring Twenties. Life before was filled with strife, worry, and a hope that the war would end. Life during the Roaring Twenties was filled with parties, spending money, joy, and happiness. The end of World War One. World War One ended in 1918, and this was reason of celebrating. People partied and rejoiced at the end of a tragedy. Many people lost their lives during the war. So when the soldiers returned home to America, they celebrated. During the 20s, there were three Republican presidents: Woodrow Wilson, Warren G. Harding, and Calvin Coolidge. Other major events of the 20s include the formation of the League of Nations, Prohibition and organized crime, Tulsa Race Massacre, the pinnacle of the KKK, the Harlem Renaissance, Jazz Age, Teapot Dome Scandal, Scott's Monkey Trial, radio broadcasting, the rise of the automobile, and Lindenberg's flight. The Roaring Twenties was a period of history of dramatic social and political change. For the first time, more Americans lived in cities than on farms. The nation's total wealth more than doubled between 1920 and 1929. This economic growth swept across America and brought consumers into a consumer society. The most familiar symbol of the Roaring Twenties is probably the flapper, a young woman with bobbed hair, short skirts, and who drank, smoked, and said what might be termed unladylike things, in addition to being more sexually free than previous generations. The Jazz Age. The dances during the Jazz Age include the Charleston, the Cakewalk, the Black Bottom, and the Flea Hop. Jazz bands played at big venues and clubs, and radio stations used phonograph records to carry tunes to listeners across the nation. Fitzgerald actually chronicled the Jazz Age. The activities of the Roaring Twenties include baseball, which is the nation's pastime, movies, board games, dancing, spectator sports, and listening to the radio. Mass communication and consumerism were big during the 20s. They spent money on consumer goods such as ready-to-wear clothes and home appliances like electric refrigerators. In particular, they bought radios. During the 20s, some freedoms were expanded while others were curtailed. The 18th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified in 1919, which had banned the manufacture and sale of intoxicating liquors, and at 12 a.m. on January 16, 1920, the Volstead Act closed every tavern, bar, and saloon in the United States. From then on, it was illegal to sell any intoxicating liquor or beverages with more than 0.5% alcohol. This drove it underground, and it was actually begun to be controlled by bootleggers, racketeers, and other organized crime figures such as Chicago gangster Al Capone. Fitzgerald's stories fit in to the Roaring Twenties because he used that set for most of his stories. And as said on an earlier slide, Fitzgerald chronicled the Jazz Age, or also known as the 20s.